Hi, Wallace.
Hi, Michelle. How are you?
I am excited to talk about today's work, what we're talking about. Newsletters.
Yes.
I love newsletters.
Yes, and also welcome 12th House Plus Inside Scoop, behind the scenes listeners. Hi.
Very intuitive people, very important intuitive people, VIPs.
Yes, the VIPs. And today we are talking all about newsletters.
Yay!
How, why, what, who, when.
Exactly. All of those things we're going to try and hit. Newsletters, so hot right now. A couple years ago, they weren't that hot. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? This might be, we might be peak newsletter. We may not. I will say though, I don't think newsletters are ever going to die for many reasons.